Oh,
Hello, Dr. Munzu. Good morning, sir.
good morning.
Thank you. This is Chris Foreman.
Yes, I can recognize the voice.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. All right. So I really took some time listening to your presentation
hmm
in Atlanta, and
hmm
I must say it was a very impressive presentation, and I think
hmm
I really agree with much of what you said.
hmm
Uh, other than that, other than that, does the argument that uh, we
Yeah,
cannot?
sorry, did you say you agree or that you don't agree with much of
No,
what I
I
said?
agree. I agree
Okay.
mostly with
hmm
what you said. Yes,
Okay.
I agree
Okay.
mostly with what you said in the
hmm
presentation.
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
but the question is,
hmm
on the grounds of what you presented,
hmm
are you really saying we cannot get in? I mean, we should not go for independence because of that argument? Because I mean, we are uh, a sovereign people. We
hmm
have the right to self-determination like
hmm
every other group. On the
hmm
basis of your argument, are you saying that we cannot go for independence because we don't have a chance with the UN, or that we cannot go for independence at all?
I don't know what the difference is, Chris, in substance. I suppose the bottom line is achieving independence, right?
Correct.
It's not what you want to do or don't want to do. It is what you can obtain.
Right.
hmm And I'm saying that the way my reading of the situation as it is right now, and I laid out the grounds for that vision or for that perception, is that you are not going to be able to convince anybody in the international community to back us up in an internal negotiation of bringing an end to what the entire world recognizes to be one sovereign country. Okay. Now, in spite of our history, in spite of everything, you know that for the international community today, and when we say the international community, that is what? That is the United Nations when it comes to matters of recognizing independence of the states and all of that. So when you look at the evolution that led to the grant of self-government to us, getting us to join La République, as I argue in that address,
Right.
it was in conformity with what the international community practiced at the time. Now, do you realistically think that you are going to go to New York and tell someone in the General Assembly, let's open this matter up again? You're going to tell some people at the Security Council of the UN, let's open this matter up. You are going to go to a trusteeship council that does not even exist anymore and say, let's open this matter up. You are going to go to the International Court of Justice, which decided in the Northern Cameroon's case that it doesn't have the capacity to reverse anything that was done by the General Assembly, and he said, let's open this matter up. So, Chris, for me, it's a matter of it's not what we want, it's not what we wish. If you ask me today whether my territory, Southern Cameroon, should be independent or not, what makes you think that I will not say instantly, let's be independent? But I'm looking in terms of what is feasible and what is not. What
Okay.
is feasible and what is not. So these people who are saying that they are going to get us restore the independence of Southern Cameroon, my question to them has been, how do you propose to do that? How do you propose to do that? And there are just two avenues to this, to restoration of our independence. The two avenues. One is that you negotiate a return, this restoration. Now, whom are you going to negotiate with?
That's the
You see,
question.
exactly. So whom are you going to negotiate with? Do you think that you are going to call Mr. Biya around the table internally and say, look, Mr. Biya, let's sit down and work out the terms for the separation of these two territories that came together in 1961? Do you realistically see him or anybody in La République sitting down around the table and quietly and peacefully and nicely discussing with us for 3 days, 1 month, 3 months, or whatever modalities for the separation of this territory?
Yeah, but that is the same argument that people are raising when you champion because for a return to a federation, because like every one of us else does, that Mr. Bia is not going to sit on any dialogue table with you to talk federation.
No, it's different, Chris. It is different in the sense that you can exert pressure. Let me put it this way: even the limited gains that have been scored in this since October, right? The concessions that have been made, which some people say are just window dressing and all of that. Okay, let's take them even at that value, window dressing, but there are some concessions. So, you think even those have been granted because Mr. Bia wanted to grant them? Mr. Bia granted them because he is reacting to pressure coming from our population on the ground. It's not these cyber warriors who are shooting things on the social media. Mr. Bia saw in the past how many months the resolve of our population, as expressed by the fact that they did not send their children back to school, as expressed by the fact that they followed these ghost towns on Mondays and sometimes Tuesdays. And we have internally, whether I appear on television or I write in newspapers, I have constantly referred to the fact that Bia has caved in, as it were, to the pressure coming from our people. Okay. Now, so he can make concessions, bowing to pressure coming from our people, but obviously for him, that cannot go as far as saying, let's break the country up. Okay? He can cow down to pressure and say, okay, you guys finally, I was not listening before, I didn't know what this thing was, I underestimated it, but now I understand. Let us go back to an arrangement that would allow, as was initially intended, that we govern our affairs respecting the two heritages we brought into this union. That is feasible. That is politically feasible.
Well, it is, but nobody really thinks that can be achieved with the current regime going by its history. Because okay, let's say then. Okay, Chris, let us say then. Okay, let me concede you that I don't believe. First of all, I don't believe that is so, because we are attributing to this regime a kind of incapacity to change. Yes, I agree that the nature of this regime is such that, yes, they are slow to change because they simply do not have a culture of negotiating with citizens. They don't believe in that. But what I'm saying is that the events since last October have shown that in spite of that skin that they wear, it is possible to force them to behave differently and to look at things differently. And that we ought to be mobilizing our forces like one man to say, listen, you guys robbed us of the federation, the thing for which we joined. You robbed us of that in 1972. And as one man, we are going to put pressure on you to make sure that we bring it back. And my conviction is that is something that is negotiable, that is something that is obtainable by discussion, by dialogue. But you cannot, by negotiation or dialogue, expect to get separation or secession or restoration or whatever I want to call it from Mr. Bia. Now, what does that then leave us with? And that is why I keep saying, if we recognize that Bia is not going to grant us, is not going to yield to going our separate ways, how do we intend to get there?
And
that would take me to this other question, because you mentioned the impossibility of regaining our independence through the diplomatic way by the United Nations. Now, look at the Southern Sudans. The Southern Sudans, I really don't have a good history of what their relationship was with Sudan prior to independence. But in spite of that, they were able to fight their way and come out of the Sudan, and they have an independent country.
You have just said
that today.
You have just said it, Chris. You have just said it. They fought their way. You understand?
Yes.
They fought their way, Chris, and they fought their way in a period of about 30 years. Okay? Yeah. So what I have been saying to the separatists, and I call them separatists, although I hear my young brother Ayub Tabe categorizing them yesterday as nationalists, and the rest of us are supposed to be non-nationalists, I guess. But anyway, they are separatists. Let them have the dignity, if you like, the sincerity to admit that. Others are unionists, others are federalists. They are not nationalists, as if others are not. They are separatists. They should admit that. Anyway, so you have just let out the word, Chris. Taking the example of South Sudan. The South Sudanese, with John Garang and others, they fought a war of liberation of South Sudan. That lasted about 30 years, but which ultimately delivered the goods, right?
Yes.
But it took that fighting, it took war for the international community to be able to say, oh no, all this devastation cannot continue, you guys have to declare a ceasefire, you guys must do this, and that's where the international community comes in, Chris. This is simple international practice.
So is that what you meant when you wrote that it would take war for the southern Cameroons to get independence? Because you wrote that in the initial statement that you sent out that provoked a lot of...
I did, and that is what that's what I mean. I said it will take war, and don't take my word for it. In fact, I dare those who, instead of pillaring me and throwing insults at me, the best way for them to prove me wrong, Chris, is to deliver us that independence without war. Let them deliver it to you, and let me see how it will happen.
Okay,
so if on the other hand they recognize today in the face of the reality which they're trying to run away from now, but if eventually they realize that indeed Simon Munzu has been saying that we cannot get independence by diplomatic channels, they're talking about preventive diplomacy, blah blah blah, and so now we recognize that it can only be by war, then they should tell our people. John Garang and others told the people of Southern Sudan, we are going to fight a war of liberation for you now, you guys get ready. Okay, so they should have the guts in that sense to say today, listen, we know Mr. Biya cannot negotiate with us. We know that the international community would not, we cannot get independent by diplomacy. So what avenue is left is war. And let us have the courage to tell our people.
Don't you think they are saying that one way or other when they say, hey, we have all options on the table?
Yeah, but why put it in those terms, Chris? We've gotten to the point where they can't say all options on the table. What are the all options? Especially when you see, remember that I got all this stinging from Tasang and others. If you read my ADF press release number 3 again, I did not spell out modalities for dialogue. I did not say who was going to dialogue with whom. I did not say who was going to represent whom at the dialogue. I did not say what were going to be the subjects on the table of the dialogue. I did not say what was the expected outcome of the dialogue. All I did was bring home the fact that this situation in Cameroon today requires that we have a dialogue, and that our people can pressurize the establishment in Yaoundé to have that dialogue. And for this, we begin with parliamentarians who, whether we like it or not, are institutional leaders to approach Mr. Biya. Now, so when you say that all options are on the table, what are the options?
including self-defense, the armed struggle that you're talking about.
Yeah, but exactly. But what I'm saying, when you say all options are on the table, now, okay, armed struggle is one of them. The others are what?
And dialogue is one of them, I guess.
Dialogue, exactly. Dialogue is one of them. And is there any other?
I really don't know. Maybe the leaders will be in the better place to say.
Okay, but let us say then that for now, the two that we're able to name are armed struggle and dialogue. Now, the reaction of Skakuf and others to our dialogue initiative has been to say, listen, that's out of the question. We're not going to dialogue. Blah blah blah. Okay, so you take dialogue off the table. What is left?
Well, but Doctor.
No, Chris. No, just answer me. It's very simple. You take dialogue off the table. There are only two options on the table. You take dialogue off, Chris. What is left?
The military option, of course.
Exactly. Okay, so if that is what it is, then why don't you tell the people? Everything else is off. It is now time for us to. We're opting for we're taking the military option. Why are they finding it so difficult? Why are they finding it so difficult to say so?
I think before they get there, they have one more option, which I believe you will agree on that option, and that option would be if La Republic and people like you who are advocating for a return to federation instead of straight independence, if both parties would agree, a simple referendum, just like you were suggesting in your presentation, who tells the leadership that some people that they have to dictate for people? So the recourse would be, why don't we just conduct a referendum?
Yeah, but even the decision, Chris, when you have a situation where the separation is on the table on one side, and that side it's represented by, say, Skaku and separatists. Now, and then the other side is union that will be represented by the regime in Yaoundé and its supporters. Now, they start from those two extremes, Chris. On the one extreme is we are leaving. The other extreme is we are not letting you go. Now, if you are going to put the matter to referendum, the two parties have to sit down and discuss and come to the conclusion that they need a referendum.
Well, do you really need the two parties? You need a neutral body. The EU can.
The neutral body, Chris. The way again, I don't know why we are discussing here as if Southern Cameroon was living in a world of its own, Chris. The world in which we live today, you are not going to get what you call a neutral body come into a country that is recognized today to be a sovereign state and say that we, a neutral body, are coming into your territory to organize a referendum. Chris, it does not happen that way.
But Doctor, don't you remember that the same neutral body came to Cameroon and presented two maps to the president of the sovereign
again, Chris. This is my how shall I call it now? Impatience or whatever with these separatists. They cook up so many things. There are so many. It's like almost a kind of 419, to use the expression. They cook up so many false things, Chris, and throw them at our population and create the illusion that the situation is going to be resolved from outside. That story about two maps. They say that Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General, came to I don't know in what event and presented two maps, blah blah blah. Look,
no, it wasn't Ban Ki-moon. It was a representative.
Okay, all right, and that presented two maps. Now, the two maps were about what? And what did the two maps do? What did the two maps say?
It was a way of telling La République du Cameroon, the leader, the president, that listen, you have two sovereign states that make up this nation. And Chris, there is nobody in the international community, especially someone whom you purport was representing
the UN or its Secretary General, who would come to a sovereign, for the international community, Chris, there is only one sovereign state, Cameroon.
So, Doctor,
Okay?
are you saying that those pictures we see in the presidency with those with that delegation and the president with the two photographs frame, that they are Photoshop or what?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what you are referring to. I've never seen them. I've read about them. I've never seen them. So I don't even know. I don't have specific details about what we're describing there. But what I'm telling you is that today, as we speak, in the United Nations, there is a member state called Republic of Cameroon. If you like, Cameroon, that member state is there with a permanent seat, with a permanent representative, if you like, ambassador to the United Nations in New York, and that is the entity that the international community is dealing with. The African Union, that is the entity that is sitting as a member of the African Union. You go to ECAS, the Central African sub-regional organization. That is the entity that is a member. So I don't know where this thing comes from in terms of Cameroon. We have two sovereign states and all of that. We don't.
So, Doctor, listening to you, you don't appear to give the independent movement a chance. So, if I may ask, this is hypothetical. What would you do? What would you request to should the regime, the Biya regime, say, we're not having federation on the table? We have said it. We're not having it. What would be your next step?
Exactly, Chris. That would be a position of last resort. Okay. You understand? Yes, that would be a position of resort. Of last resort. If you were to tell me today that we have exhausted the possibility of return to federation by dialogue because the regime in Yaoundé says that this is a no-go, okay? Then at that point, you are put in a situation where the choice is between remaining dominated and marginalized in the present country forever and leaving the present arrangement. And I would say that my option would be in favor of leaving the present arrangement. But at the same time, I would then have to recognize that the other side is not going to allow me leave just like that, pack your bags and cross the Munzu and go. No, the other side is going to put up a resistance to my leaving. You understand?
Right.
And that therefore I have to be prepared to fight to leave. And that will eventually take us into the South Sudan situation that you mentioned. You start your war of liberation today in the face of resistance by the regime in Yaoundé. It may take you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 30 years to liberate yourself, or perhaps never, not even at all, because we have situations, Chris, where in some countries, liberation movements have been fighting to liberate their territory for more than 35 years, and they still haven't gotten there, but are continuing.
Right.
You understand? Yeah?
So naturally, you are not opposed to independence. Your problem right now is a problem with the timing, or what?
No, I am not. My approach is more nuanced than that. It is not a matter of being. It's not a matter of being opposed or not opposed to independence. For me, it begins from: is independence necessary at this stage? Okay, and the reason I say it's not necessary at this stage is that I personally don't believe that our people made a wrong choice when in 1961, faced with choosing between independence by joining Nigeria and independence by joining La République, they chose to join La République, right? And that they did not make that choice without someone spelling out to them exactly what the implications of the choice would be. It was spelled out to them, and they were told you will be going into a union in the form of a federation. And in that union, you will maintain your own way of running your justice system, your own way of education, your own way of policing, etc., etc. These were specifics. You understand?
Right.
So where the thing broke, and if that had continued, if that had been respected, then I would be quite happy to be in a country today where you have two systems of education, two systems of justice, and citizens are able to choose whether they send their children to school in one system or the other. Okay? So I fundamentally would have no problem, no difficulty with that. Where it broke down is the fact that in 1972, that foundation on which unification was built was eroded, was taken off. So today, if you tell me that it is possible that we bring back that foundation, I will say, well, bring it back and let's continue as if there hadn't been any interruption. Let's take it off from there, and I'll be quite happy to live in that federal arrangement. Okay, but now, so for me, the question is independence necessary? If we can get back to reunification, to federation, independence is not a necessity. However, if you tell me on the other hand that the choice is between going for independence and remaining forever subjugated and dominated and marginalized, then I'll say, okay, listen guys, let's go for independence. And okay, but knowing that independence, because of the resistance from the other side, is not going to come. It's not going to come like you say you're sending delegations to New York to go and negotiate and bring back your independence. It will not happen. We have to be prepared then to fight a war of liberation, and we should be able to tell our people that is the hard reality.
Well, most of the people, especially back home and of course in the diaspora, would say, of course, we have arrived at that point where we have to start seeking this independence because, Doctor, you have been in the middle of this from the late 80s up to today, and you know how many times that we protested, we had conferences, you heard the tripartite in Yaoundé, and you championed the cause for a return to the system that best satisfy our people. I mean, from 1991, we are in 2017, and nothing that you laid out as a tripartite was has been implemented. Now, let's fast track to today. The lawyers started the strike. Teachers came in, they made petitions, they asked for reforms, and instead of giving them those things, they have given them an airport in Bamenda that doesn't function, that will not work. They've created a bilingualism commission that is, whoever knows what that means. And above all, they have now said, there is no federation on the table, we're not entertaining anything federation. So, people who are going in for independence are like, we have come to the end. When they say there is no federation on the table, we cannot discuss it. It means we have no option than to resort to asking for our full autonomy. Don't you see that it is the right time to do so?
Well, I think the picture that you paint there, it's something of a caricature. Because you see, we don't seem to want to realize that even in Cameroon, with this dictatorial regime, things are moving, things are changing, circumstances are changing. There is a responsiveness to national opinion, which has been slow in Cameroon because of this, as I say, this culture of dictatorship. But even that regime is beginning to recognize that we are no longer in the day where you have that full-blooded dictatorship and get away with it.
But they haven't done anything that proves that.
They haven't done. You cannot say they haven't done anything. You cannot say they haven't done anything. They have done things which they thought would be enough to, as in the past, simply let out a bit of the steam while they actually leave the pot to continue to boil. But the resistance that they have met on the ground shows them that is not sufficient these days anymore.
Well, but the thing harbors around let's forget about federation or independence. The things harbor around the initial demands of the teachers and the lawyers. If they can just fulfill those demands without we even talking about federation, do you think we would be here today?
Now, if they fulfilled those demands from the beginning, we wouldn't have been here today.
Right, and if they did it today,
but yeah, they did it. They wouldn't have been here today. But again, I'm reminding you that you are dealing with a regime that thought that it is not that thinks that it is condescending for a government to negotiate with its citizenry. Okay. And episode after episode, they adopted that high-handed method, and it worked. But this time, it isn't working. And why isn't it working? It's not because some people are threatening secession from abroad. It is not because some people are forming an interim government. It is not because... No, it is not working because the population inside Cameroon has decided to resist. And if we can organize that population... Because, by the way, it has resisted, the population has resisted without leadership. Without leadership.
I don't think it is, I don't think that's a right statement to make, because the resistance has had leadership. I mean, if you say they don't have leadership, what are the Agbobalas, Fontaine-Neba, Tassangs, Bob Gas of the world? I mean,
Chris, where do you have leadership? Where do you have absentee leadership in a mass movement? I'm not saying that at the inception of this struggle there weren't leaders. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
leaders. I think even now there are leaders, especially with the formation of this interim arrangement.
Yeah,
people are listening to them. I mean, you're trying to say there's no leadership. It's like trying to legitimate what they are trying to do. Of course, we know everything is temporary, right?
Well, everything is temporary, but again, what I'm saying is that on the ground inside Cameroon, the population has been following this ghost town calls. They've been following the calls to continue to boycott schools and so on and so forth. Okay, and we can go beyond that, and if you like, organize them more in terms of the resistance. And the sheer weight of that resistance would be enough to bring Mr. Biya, who initially may be arrogant and insensitive and all of that. When he finds that the people really mean business, he will be forced to come around the table and negotiate and dialogue.
All right, now let's talk about Let's talk about the ADF. How far have you gone in the preparations towards this conference?
I want you to understand that the approach of the Anglophone Dialogue Forum, which, by the way, we start every of our press releases, and so far we've had just 3. But if you look at our press releases, every one of those press releases begins by saying what the ADF is.
Right.
And we have said that the ADF is a network of Anglophone Cameroonian individuals and organizations who are committed to finding a lasting solution to the Anglophone problem through a frank and comprehensive national dialogue. Okay?
Yes.
Now, and the thing is, it's open, and that anyone can join in. It's a network of people and organizations and so on. And we started by floating the idea, because we fundamentally believe that a dialogue is necessary and that a dialogue is possible to give us the way forward in this matter. So we're in early stages. We're in early stages. The concept is speaking ground, and we believe that there has to be a national dialogue. That national dialogue has to be preceded by a preparatory conference of Northwest and Southwest sitting together, if you like. Some people will call it an AAC3.
Yeah.
So we are working towards that, and it is not the ADF that's going to sit alone and organize a dialogue. We are advocating the holding of a dialogue, and when people begin to see that there is a need for that dialogue and that dialogue is feasible, all such people will get together, form a working group that will steer this initiative, eventually properly convene a preparatory conference, and the preparatory conference will lay the ground for what we take to the national dialogue.
Now, after AAC1 and AAC2 in Bamenda, why do you need another conference for Anglophones to come together? I mean, you have resolutions from both of those conferences. Why can't you just?
There's nothing. Many people, this is not a matter of. This is not an event to be handled just on the intent of history. It happens to be that the difference between 1993 AAC1, 1994 AAC2, and what may well turn out to be AAC3 today, is that in 1993 and 1994, you could say that this thing was a kind of elitist initiative, right?
Yes.
Yes, it was an elitist initiative. When we met, yes, there were many people who turned up in Buea and Bamenda, respectively, but they were still just the elite. And much of what we were saying at the time, it came from an analysis, the study of text and study of history and all of that, and a lot, So that was then. Today, the new element is that the population, all generations included, feel directly the effects of this domination and marginalization we've been talking about. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. In the intervening 23, 25 years since 1993, 1994, the level and the degree, the intensity of the marginalization and of the domination have been such that the impact is being felt by our population in the rural areas, in the cities, across generations, the young, the old, the children we're talking about in terms of education and so on. So they all see it, and that is why it has become a people struggle.
Right.
Given those new elements, we believe that it is important that we sit down in the Northwest and Southwest in a new conference and examine the situation, produce indeed a catalog of these grievances that demonstrate what we mean when we say that we've been dominated and marginalized, which is unacceptable. And that will be the platform on which to go to a national dialogue. Okay.
Doctor, don't you think that the petitions of the teachers and the lawyers already contain some of these things that we just need to sit down and...
They do, Chris, but you see, again, as we say, in our releases, those are important areas, but there are only two aspects of a large phenomenon. All right? Do you expect, by the way, when the teachers started, when the lawyers started, it took some discussion behind the scenes, for people to go towards the teachers and say, listen, guys, the lawyers have started this thing. You teachers have been petitioning also for a while now. Why don't you join the action? Right?
Right.
Now, the thing could have been extended to journalists. In the area of communication, whether it be by newspaper or by radio or by television, you know that we are completely marginalized and dominated.
Right.
So the journalists could have gone into this. Even medical doctors and medical practitioners, given the fact that increasingly our hospitals are being taken over by people who come and treat our mothers and fathers and children and ourselves, communicating in pidgin or in English and in French. Now, if you have professionals who are worried about the quality of treatment that is given, which depends upon communication, there's ground there for doctors, at least Anglophone doctors, to go on strike, etc. So there are so many sectors where this phenomenon manifests itself, and we're not going to say that we should wait until there is a strike in each sector before we do something about it, as what has happened with lawyers and teachers. So we believe that we should use the lawyer and teacher thing as a pointer, but then come to a forum where in all these other areas, the phenomenon is described, it's highlighted as it has been in the area of education and justice. And then we put that gives us a package that we put together, and we go to a national dialogue and say, you guys cannot continue to treat us in these ways. Here is the evidence. This is exactly what we mean. In this area, this is how things are. In that area, that's how things are. You know, even access to credit. I mean, when people say that we have no industries in the northwest and southwest, apart from things that the government would normally provide, there is even those that individuals could provide as well in terms of the private sector. But how do you have a private sector with no access to capital?
Right. So, Doctor,
there are key issues. You know, there are many issues there which require that we see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you absolutely. Now, are you getting any signals from the regime that they are interested in this forum?
Yeah, as I told you, I mean the initiative is new, right? It's fresh. So we're not going to pretend that while we are convinced that there is growing what do we say, interest, a growing interest in it. We're not going to say that in the how many days now since that we went public on the initiative that we've had answers to many questions yet. No, we start with our own constituency, right?
Right.
We start with our constituency, our public opinion in southern Cameroons, and that is what we've been doing. There is increasing awareness. We have opened contacts with the establishment in Yaoundé, and basically to make them understand that, listen, these are the options before you. You either engage a proper dialogue, a meaningful dialogue that allows us to see as a national family and resolve this matter, or you are indeed opening the way for eventually for the liberation of southern Cameroons by war. Okay, it may take us a long time, but during that long time, you may think that you have military superiority, but even just a disruptive effect alone on your own economy and your social life and this and that, you will not sleep, eh?
Right.
You know, yeah. So there is that kind of language that we are taking to them, and let's give this a chance. Let's see. Instead of working on the basis that they have never moved and therefore they will never move, blah blah blah. Conditions are changing, situations are changing.
So, Doctor, what is your position on the shutdown of schools until some kind of solution for this crisis is met?
Well, on that, and I'm giving my own personal view here.
Yes.
Yes. I'm giving my own personal view. Using the shutdown of schools as a mechanism for exerting pressure, I have to say that first of all, it happened by chance, right? It happened by chance in the sense that the barbarism, the brutality that the forces of La République showed on our young people, especially at the University of Buea,
yes,
are the things that revolted our population, our mothers and fathers, to the point of saying, wait a minute, if you are going to brutalize our children like that in the University of Boya, we're not allowing them to go back there. And that spilled over to the primary and secondary and nursery schools and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, and it has been sustained by parental refusal to send their children back to school.
Right.
Now, so if the same parents say after reflection that, okay, while there is negotiation, while there is dialogue, while people are talking, while this and that, we have made our point and we want our children to go back to school, should they be stopped from sending their children back to school?
Well, they haven't said so yet, and I think the parents are also saying, we don't like the system. We don't like you having French teachers in our school.
I agree. Absolutely.
And that hasn't changed yet.
Absolutely. So what I'm saying basically is that, yes, the parents have the principal voice here. Because we don't think that children should go to school just for the sake of going to school. Children are going to school for quality education.
Right.
And if that quality education is not being given, for as long as, then of course, then the school is worthless.
Right.
The school is worthless. Now, but who is to determine in the final analysis whether that is so or not, and whether they're prepared to live with it or not? In my view, it will be the parents.
Absolutely.
So,
and
exactly. So if the parents voluntarily say our children are not going back to school, there will be no school. On the other hand, if the parents, after everything is everything considered, say, all right, yeah, we want the discussions to continue, but in the meantime, our schools should resume, even though we know that there are these shortcomings, but work is being done to improve them, and so on and so forth. Then what do? We force them not to send their children back to school? For me, that's the dilemma.
That is the place of the parents to decide what they do with parents.
Yes. So for me, the final decision rests with the parents, and who after all understand what is at stake, and they should go. Now, we cannot hold children hostage forever, but that also means that those who are pushing, the resistance has to come up also with more creative ways of continuing to resist, other than just by school boycott or ghost towns.
Well, that is a point. That is a point that I completely support.
Yes.
I
think we can be creative enough to come up with alternative modes of resistance.
Right.
That do not put the burden entirely on one group, just because by accident of circumstances that's what happened. I mean, why for instance should lawyers be barristers alone be the ones to continue to I mean, by not going to court? I mean, there are, of course, there are consequences for them as well. In terms of, these are self-employed people. How long can we expect that to be the modality? They've been on for almost a year now. How much longer can they resist? Can they withstand?
Well, now, Doctor, talking about the federation, what is your opinion of the type of federation you would like to see? Is it a return to 1961 or a new type of federation, considering that the nation has seen overgrown that population of 1961?
Yeah, you see, my own take in everything, Chris, is not to start with a prescription. Okay. I don't start with the prescription.
But you should have something in mind when you're...
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't start with the prescription. I prefer that I proceed with diagnosis, right?
Yes.
And then the diagnosis will tell us what to prescribe, what we need to prescribe. So, and that for me, that's why I attach so much importance to dialogue, beginning from even amongst Anglophones themselves. We have to sit down as a Southern Cameroon community and say, okay, if we are going to returning to federation, what federal arrangement do we want? We need to carry out a dialogue, a discussion on that.
But didn't you already agree on that in 1993 and 94 in the two AACs?
Yes, but I agree. But once again, let me repeat that I don't believe that we can simply go and take up 1993, 1994, dust it up and say in 2017 this is what we want. Opinions have evolved. There are many considerations, and we need to have a fresh discussion. Once we agree that we are heading towards federation, we then need to sit down as a Southern Cameroon community and decide based on various considerations what form of that federation should take. For example, if you look at it simply from the standpoint of the two colonial heritages, right?
Yes.
So a federation that predicated on the need to respect our two colonial heritages, then you would take yourself straight to a return to 1961, a two-state federation.
Right.
Okay. Now, but other people will tell you that, well, yeah, I mean that is the first level, and then they'll say, well, we think that we want even devolution of authority and power and resources to go even lower than that.
Right.
And that takes you to today's regions, right? So you have, if you're going to have genuine regional autonomy, not this thing that superficial thing that is contemplated by the 2004 laws on decentralization, but genuine regional autonomy. Now, if you go that far, then you are going to end up with 10 regions with elected governors and their own elected either councils or assemblies and so on and so forth. To all intents and purposes, you will be having a federation of 10 states or 10 regions, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it all depends. You can also say, and that's something that we try to a notion that we introduced into our federal draft constitution that was submitted in 1993. You can also say that yes, you have a return to the two-state federation, but then within each of the federated states, the regions enjoy autonomy. All right.
Right.
Because again, and that's what I was talking about diagnosis first, Chris, before one comes to prescription. And I don't believe that we should shy away from sociological and other realities just because we want to make a political point. You and I know that in Southern Cameroon territory today, yes, there is the sense of the Northwest and the Southwest. There is a sense of the Northern and Southwest dichotomy. Yes. I know that people will say, "Oh no, you don't bring us that." No. I mean, there's a sociological reality there.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah, which in fact takes the form of Southwesterners expressing fear of potential domination and marginalization by Northwest, of the type that we Anglophones are complaining today vis-a-vis Francophones.
Right.
And that is not coming from just people's imagination. It's coming from the experiences that were lived in the period 1959 to 1960 to 1972, when we had a government in Southern Cameroon and subsequently the government of West Cameroon.
Right.
Yeah. There is the fact that the Northwesterners are very dynamic. We can't force them that. But there are people whom that dynamism rings alarm bells in other people, in the sense that, yeah, they have the money, they are pushful, they have the enterprises, they have the et cetera, et cetera. In other words, for some people are saying, if you just say, have a government of West Cameroon or Southern Cameroon or whatever, the likelihood is that arrangement is going to be dominated is one in which the Southwest is going to be dominated by the Northwest. This is a sociological reality.
Well,
Okay?
but then if you go to the table before arriving at what form of state the Southern Cameroon look like and predefine some of those things. For example, in Nigeria, they realized that the Hausas were dominating all the time, they had power all the time, and they decided to carve out or implement a rotational presidency.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly why I started by telling you that I don't start with prescriptions. I start with diagnosis. So when we go to we go to a conference, we should put all these things on the table, but we should have the honesty to say that these are real issues. No, don't bring us that. No. It's Mr. Biya who created Hijo who created Northern and Southwest. There was no Northern and Southwest before. That's nonsense. I mean, long before I was born, and obviously before you were born, there was a distinction between Bamenda province and Cameroon province in the colonial times.
Yeah.
I was a kid when we were reading newspapers such as we had in southern Cameroons and West Cameroon in those days, where there was this movement of Vikuma Kumamanfe, as opposed to, which is what we have as Southwest today. So there are historical things here, and we cannot pretend and just brush them under the carpet because we want to present a united face of Anglophones. No. So these are... there are problems at those various levels, and it's only through sitting down, having the word keeps coming up, having a dialogue where nobody wants to short sell the other. Let's not go down. We have a dialogue where Francophones say, okay, let's sit down with these people, but we are going to make sure that we organize such things in such a way that the dialogue is the way that we come out victorious. Or you go to the preparatory conference of Northwest and Southwest and say, yeah, let's go and sit down there, but we'll make sure that things that we discuss there are such that one side or the other between Northern and Southwest is victorious. No. We have to go in there with a spirit of sincerity, making sure that we listen to each other's gripes, and we find solutions.
Well, Doctor, I think I've taken so much of your time, and I appreciate your patience to explain these things to me. And
I mean that's the best contribution I can make at this stage in my life. I don't have an agenda to push as such, except in the collective agenda, but the collective agenda, which in my opinion should be informed by facts and by laws, if those laws apply, by regulations and so on. We cannot run away from facts. That's how we should approach this. And also in a spirit of civilization, civilized exchange, civilized discourse. As I said in Atlanta, a crossing of ideas, not a crossing of swords. You know, that's my take on this. Mm-hmm.
Well, again, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to talking with you again once in a while.
Anytime, Chris. Anytime. We're in this together. Anytime.
Absolutely.